Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar today. So today we're going to hear how Downer improved efficiency and fueled growth by digitalizing site processes. So my name's Ashley Grogan, editor of Inside Construction magazine, and I'll be hosting today's session, which is in the style of a fireside chat with our speakers. So in the construction industry, and indeed any industry where there are a lot of moving parts, people and processes, embracing the technologies that come with digitalization are essential to staying competitive. Process automation can create higher production rates, improve project delivery times, create better health and safety measures, and reduce overheads. In other words, it can solve common pain points faced in the construction industry, such as project overruns, spiraling costs, and supply shortages. So today we're going to hear firsthand about how FlowForma process automation has improved Downer's workflows through the elimination of manual paper-based processes, increased collaboration, and improved governance. So the speakers are going to explore Downer Construction's experience with automating processes such as permit to dig, purchase orders, and daily job records and timesheets. The benefits Downer Construction has realised as a result of digitalising these site processes, advice on how to achieve real-world process automation success, and how a no-code process automation tool allows organisations to rapidly digitise their processes to support remote workers, remove manual processes, and drive project efficiency. So introducing you to our speakers today, Cameron Heineman, National Digital Engineering Lead of Transport and Infrastructure at Downer Construction, and Paul Stone, a Product Strategist at FlowForma. So thank you both to our speakers for being generous with their time today, particularly because we're all on different time zones. So I'm sure 90% of those who've joined today's webinar have heard of Downer Construction, but Cameron, could you give us a little background on Downer New Zealand and your role there?
Sure. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you're over in Europe. My name is Cameron Heineman. My role is National Digital Engineering Lead for Downer Transport in New Zealand. If you haven't heard of digital engineering, don't worry, I've got your back. I'll explain a little bit about what that's about. Downer has roughly 32,000 employees across New Zealand and Australia, and we construct and maintain across a bunch of different disciplines, including transport and infrastructure, utilities, social infrastructure, energy and industrial, and rail and transit systems. So a bit of a mouthful there. I'm sure you've probably seen Downer trucks across New Zealand and Australia. What I'll do is just share my screen for you quickly, just to give you an idea of what we do within digital engineering. So I'll just increase this here a little bit. So this is our digital engineering strategy from Downer New Zealand infrastructure. And you can see here we, within our team, we're focused on winning work. We need to deliver that work. So we're delivering projects and then looking to transform the way that we work during the course of a project. And then with any luck, that will lead to us winning more work. So in my team, I have 25 people, and their roles cover from CAD and BIM technicians, digital engineering leads, to GIS, automation, and AI. So if we look in here, you'll see in terms of winning work, there's this big staircase of acronyms. They represent different projects that we're working on. And really, for us in the digital engineering team, it's been a journey that spanned across the last sort of 4 to 5 years. And the reason I've put these projects on the staircase like this is that every new project is like the next generation of the previous project. So through our transformation, we're always trying to work smarter, and hence we're sort of going up the staircase. So it was a very sort of grassroots approach, where we started off with 1 or 2 projects, and now it's sort of ballooned from what was a thought experiment to something a little bit more enterprise. So in terms of delivering work, what we've come up with here is a digital menu. So from a Downer perspective, we can explain how we plan works and using digital methodology, how we build them, and then how we hand over to our clients. So I'll talk through a little bit of this today, but we're going to focus mostly on the digital forms part, which is really started off as a really important initiative for us, and you'll be able to see how it's grown throughout the organization. So in terms of transformation, we, aside from delivering the projects that we work on as a digital team, we're always thinking about how can we work smarter. So people talk about failing fast. We like to think that we learn fast. We're able to develop any good ideas, and then always looking to make them business as usual for our digital projects. So the portfolio of projects which is under our control. But then for the really good ideas, we're looking to make them business as usual for our whole business unit, and then potentially business as usual for the whole enterprise. So and then the last piece there, and the connection back here is really those great ideas helping us to win more work, and sort of closing that loop there. So what I'll do quickly is just flick over to this PowerPoint presentation just to give you an idea really quickly about what we do. So on any one of our digital engineering projects, what you'll see is, sorry, just go back here, a portfolio of projects where the 3D model geometry takes precedence over the drawings. So we're taking 3D design information from the designer. We're loading that directly up into the survey controllers or into our machines on site. And then once we've built the thing, we are as-builting it using typical survey methodology and building as-built models in the same format that we receive from design. So that's sort of the basic or basis of a digital model first workflow. And then in using those 3D models, what we're able to do is unlock a whole bunch of other capability, like extracting quantities from models. This example here is taking a drainage model, linking it into GIS, and being able to extract quantities from it. We're able to do 4D simulations where we combine the construction program with a 3D model. And then really the core part of a digital project is being able to achieve interdiscipline design coordination before we get out on site. So in this example here, we would have our site engineers flying through the model and solving coordination issues before we get out on site. So that gives you an idea of the background of Downer and what we do within the digital engineering team.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cameron. So I think it would be interesting to hear where our attendees are at in their digital transformation journey. So we're going to launch that poll now. Personally, from my interactions with the industry through Inside Construction magazine, I feel that many businesses are still at the beginning of their journey. Is that your take, Cameron?
I think I've been thinking more and more about this question actually, and I'd say it really does depend when you look at the construction supply chain. I mean, just to give you an idea, 10 years ago, we never would have heard of a precaster being able to take 3D models and build from 3D models. But in the last couple of years, we've been able to hand 3D models directly to the precast team, and they're able to create shop drawings and build off those 3D models. But then if you compare that to cast in situ concrete, so instead of building concrete in a shop, talking about pouring concrete on site, that's still very low tech. Mm-hmm. So, with people on site like that, you're going to be giving them drawings, not 3D models. So I would say, people like to say that the construction industry suffers from lack of innovation, but I think there's just a really large, varied sort of uptake of digital across the supply chain.
Yeah, 100%. Fantastic. So let's take a look at the results. Just wait for that to pop up. Great. So looking at these results, 63% have just started their journey or just introduced some new ways of working. Looking at these results, Cam, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. It's clearly people jumping on the call, wanting to learn about how to get started, probably.
Mhm.
And I think you know for me, if I was to go back in time and think about where I started on the journey with digitizing forms. In fact, I remember my first day at Downer. I got pulled into a meeting by some of the sort of senior people, and I said to them, I just can't believe that we haven't got widespread digital rollout in construction. And I was told that wasn't part of my job and not to do it. And of course, I went and did it anyway. So yeah, our story is a kind of a grassroots approach, and maybe we can sort of get into that a little bit more around how we sort of approach processes, systems, and how we actually how you can actually stand up your first digital process, which was a big important part of our approach towards it.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. And Cam, again, before Downer started on its digital transformation journey, can you tell us about some of the process challenges your business faced?
Yeah, I think there's many challenges across construction in general, but in terms of process challenges, really, and from big business construction, there is kind of two views of the world. One is, what is the enterprise view of your business? So there's mandated systems and there's mandated processes that you have to adhere to. But then there's a whole bunch of gaps once you get onto a construction project. So we'll be able to show you. I'll share my screen and go through some of the processes that we've digitized. But for us, I think we break up the subject of digital forms into two parts. One is simple forms that you can fill out to, for example, collect quality information. And then there's the second part, which are more complex, when you want to build a form that can facilitate a business process. So for us on site, we refer to that as a pitch and catch. So I'm requesting something like a permit. We'll talk about a digital permit to dig. I'm requesting a permit, someone else has to approve it, and then someone else is going to use it, and then it goes on and on. Someone needs to close it out. So the focus for us in our journey was mainly around those facilitating those complex processes. And what we found is, when we were looking at different tools, there was a couple of things that we decided that we had to work to. One was we needed the business process tool. The second part was we needed to be able to decouple those processes from IT. If you have to, every time you want to create a digital site process, if you need to go to IT every time, it's really going to slow you down. So we had to decouple it from IT. We wanted to make sure that the information that we're capturing, that we can use it in the future. So for us, being able to capture information within the Microsoft suite of tools, so within SharePoint or within SQL, was going to be really useful. And then another important part for us looking at solutions was making sure that the whole supply chain can interact with those processes. So there's no point in us coming up with we could have the most clever process in the world, but then if we have to set up all of the users, including all of the subcontractors, with the Downer login, we would just never get there. So they were probably the key points, or sort of directives that we were working to when we were looking at technology.
Yeah, brilliant. So I guess let's see if our audience has had some similar challenges. We're going to launch another poll now. So while we wait for those results, Paul, did you want to comment on whether Downer's process challenges are similar to those of other customers you've worked with?
Yes, absolutely, Ashley. we work with many construction companies across the world, and they all have the same challenges, and they all need to digitize processes to help improve efficiency, and most importantly, as Cam just mentioned, gather data. Where I think construction is a very data hungry sector, and any way that you can gather that data from the site processes that you're executing really helps you continuously improve. It was a great point Cam mentioned earlier on about every single project is basically a follow-on from the last one, and constantly you're improving your organization, you're improving the way you do things, and having digital processes in place really helps that. And a lot of construction companies around the world are realizing that and acting on it and putting in place continuous improvement programs, just like Downer.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's take a look at the results. Right, so 50% processes are paper and email based to manual. Is that surprising?
I don't
No,
think
it's
that's
not.
surprising at
Not at
all.
all.
Okay.
Yeah, did you want to weigh in on that at all, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. It really surprises me still the fact that construction is so paper-based. And it's a really good point on the way technology is adopted in construction companies, and Cam can chime in on this, that actually, you know what, it is variable. So you have like your design team who are using CAD programs, but people out on site are often still based on paper. They're relying on email chains. And once you're doing that, you end up with zero data collection, and that leads to poor visibility. So the second most popular point there, poor visibility, and it's a constant concern. And one of the big pluses you get from digitizing processes and gathering data is that you get your dashboards. You can quickly see where everything is at any point in time on a project, and that really makes a difference in terms of impacting the third point on that, which was delays. You can head off delays before they have any significant impact. Don't know if Cam wants to add to that.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's all really good points. The other thing is that jumps out to me is there's kind of two parts to it. One is when you're coming up with a digital process, you want operational efficiency, right? So you want your people on site for it to be more efficient for them to do that thing. If it isn't more efficient for them in their day-to-day work, they just won't do it. So that's kind of number one for me. And then the additional benefit beyond that is the data that you work with. So as Paul was saying, being able to have a BI report of your process that you've digitized. So that's the next benefit. And then I think we learnt on our journey, and it's a few steps down in the journey, but once you start collecting that data, you can start thinking about how you might join different processes together. So, for example, we've set up a process in the past with just a basic site sign-on. So someone turns up to site and they scan a QR code. So once that person is registered in a database, you can then start collecting timesheets. So it's a secondary kind of process, but you're using that original data that you've collected. And then once you map that through a process, you could have your site supervisor signing off on approving subcontractors' timesheets and then applying cost codes to them. And then at the end of that process, you've got a BI dashboard that's supplying you all that information that the project management team want to be able to see. So yeah, I think just judging by the crowd that are here, I think if you just stage it, so think about the first stage, which is just operational efficiency, and the rest of those steps will come as you progress in your journey.
Yeah, 100%. Great. And back to you, Paul. Could you share your thoughts about when organizations say they aren't technical enough to digitize?
Yeah, I think that's not the case. So I know there's a lot of reservation, I guess, in construction industry with regards of like rolling out technology. We still see it all around the world, different companies, different sizes, right? But everybody now sees the need to introduce technology to stay ahead, to be competitive in the marketplace, to help them win those bids. So we've seen that there's an awful lot of uptake, and people are concerned, 100% concerned, that they're not going to be able to handle this technology, not going to be able to implement it. But that is different. Like if you look at the tool we provide for Forma that Dana are using, it's a tool that's designed to be used without support from IT. You don't have to have an IT department. You don't even have to rely on the vendor, us, to help you. You can actually do it yourself. And this is really significant. And once you digitize that first process, you'll see success pretty much straight away. And that will hopefully build momentum within your organization to digitize more and more. But there are tools out there that, like FlowForma, that basically are designed for people who have business knowledge, but who don't have technical skills, to quickly build out solutions that significantly help them in their work. So I would say that while yes, there is some hesitance from construction companies to adopt technology, uh, the level of interest we're seeing across the world is very high in trying to digitize processes and introduce technology to improve not just their operations today, but their operations in the future.
Yeah, fantastic. And Cam, reflecting on Downer's journey, what would you say to organizations that are hesitant to digitize?
I think with tools like FlowForma, what they offer, and is exactly what we've been doing, is being able to build digital processes, but have graduate level people building them. I think that's a real key thing. It's something that maybe people don't think about enough. And I'll paint a scenario for you. If you, I mean, the market is very competitive in construction, right? And if you are running a project really lean, so you don't have a big site crew, and maybe it's a smaller project, and you don't have those real technical people on site, then sometimes those digital type processes can suffer. So you have to find a tool that lets you set up those processes easily. And there's a few lessons that we've learned on the way, which are, if you've got a digital site process, you have to have people on site that understand the tool. You need champions on site that are willing to breathe life into that process. So that's really important. I wonder if it's just worth now. I mean, I could show you just our digital permit to dig, so I can share my screen and sort of show a video. I think it'll be quite helpful for the people watching.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll just share my screen here. All right, so I mentioned earlier just around our journey and where it started. It actually started by posing the question, how do we reduce the risk of a service strike? So that was the short-term goal. So how do we create a digital permit to dig? And then the longer-term goal was, with the thought of, if we can crack a complex project by testing it in different platforms, then we'll be able to set up any other digital process. So start with a difficult one and actually test it in multiple platforms and battle test it, and then move to a high level digitization. So I'll just share this here. So what we're looking at is a dashboard that the quality manager or whoever's sort of owning the digital permit to dig would have on site. And I'll just play this short video. So I mentioned earlier about the pitch and catch, going from requesting a permit to reviewing and approving and then closing out. And this is showing here how we're actually integrating this permit to dig process with GIS. So our GIS platform is actually our single source of truth for utilities information, and then this is FlowForma here. So this is someone actually filling out a form with the standard downer process. So all of that information is required as part of a standard process. Once they submit that form, it goes to the approver. And something that we didn't actually mention earlier is that all of that digital information we can connect to the standard paper copy, which was just up on screen before. And then we've got high levels of automation in the background that, for example, automatically generate a drawing. And what we're seeing here is the ability for the supervisor to review the permit and approve it and sign it off. And they're able to go to a dashboard here and they can keep track of all those different permits. So this is sort of showcasing how we are linking GIS with FlowForma to facilitate a permit to dig. And this is now grown to also include, you know, multiple different processes and permits on site. But definitely a great way for us to sort of battle test different platforms. And then it's actually an important point for people that are at the start of their journey. A tool like FlowForma actually enables you to connect that digital information back to the form, like we're seeing here, including the signatures. So we can still have these paper copies on site, but the whole background process is digitized.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So in the next question, I'd like to ask how a process automation tool helped Downer improve adoption of technology across its sites. Cameron, did you want to start? And then Paul, perhaps you can weigh in.
Yeah, I think just by having a digital tool, it's going to force adoption across sites. But I think in our experience, you know, when we started with the first process, the permit to dig, what we quickly had coming back was a flood of queries of, you know, hey, can we digitize this thing? Can we digitize the next thing? And so it was actually interesting to see the different processes that we thought, well, you know, surely not many people are going to be using for example, a purchase order, but that ended up being one of our most popular forms. So I mean, I've heard of people that are digitizing, you know, a cleaner's record. So the cleaner turns up in the evening and fills out a FlowForma form and it keeps track of sort of everything they're doing. So yeah, it's started off small and then sort of quickly escalated into you know, a whole bunch of different processes. I wonder, Paul, what your experience has been with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important to choose the right one first, and I think with Downer, the permit today was the perfect choice. And what we always say is that you should listen to the feedback. So when you launch out a digital system, especially if it's a site process, where you have site workers who may not have used a similar system before, first time, right? You need to listen to their feedback and act on it. So if they say, well, actually, you know what, we need a little bit of information, more information on that form, or we need, a different type of field to be captured or whatever, you need to listen and act on it and respond to them and act quickly. And that helps a lot with adoption because it encourages ownership within the business of the solution. Now, it's not just your solution, it's their solution. They're using it every day, and the fact that you're responding and changing things quickly really helps. Another thing is interesting. You mentioned there about paper copy, Cam. Again, we see a lot in construction that paper copy is still important, and it may be that people don't even use it. They just want it there. They want to have it there, so that they can easily transition really from a paper-based system to a digital system. So having that PDF automatically generated in the right format and so on is still significant when it comes to adoption, especially in construction. Um, and really that's the key thing is to listen to people to listen to the feedback and act on it, and work with them so that they can transition from where they are today, which is a paper-based email system, to a full-blown digital process. And sweeteners like that lovely dashboard that Cam showed really help because that's what you're getting at the end of the day. You're getting that dashboard that gives you a full analysis of all that new data that you've got, didn't have before. And making that visible to the organization, saying, "Hey, you know what? This is the true end result of what you're doing." And by digitizing that permit to dig system, we now have this full-blown dashboard that actually lets you track those permits across the entire project at any point in time. That's a really significant benefit, and it's fantastic to show people, even if those people on the ground aren't using it, aren't using the dashboard, they're just filling in the form. The fact that they can see the dashboard and know that it's all real-time information, it's a really big positive point that's kind of clear to everybody involved.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. Back to you, Cameron. And you did touch on this earlier in regards to FlowForma and GIS, but can you share an example of how Downer has integrated FlowForma with other solutions?
Yeah, I think that is the example there of integrating with GIS. I can show you here. Actually, we do one more. I'll just share my screen again. Sorry, bear with me for a sec. There we go. I'll probably just show you here really quickly another process here. So going from I mentioned earlier induction to timesheet to daily job record. So I'll just play this one. Again, there's a whole bunch of steps in this process, and we're going from induction register to daily timesheet, daily job record, and all of those processes are hosted within FlowForma. So anyone that turns up to site can scan a QR code and fill out the induction register. I think that's really important, that to be able to use the system, all they need is a phone and a internet connection. So take a photo of a QR code and start entering data. We then have a timesheet that gets filled out, so another process, and that's then fed into the daily job record. So the daily job record is filled out by a supervisor, and all of the timesheet data that's collected by the waged or subbies are linked into that daily job record. So that's an example of where you're starting to link together multiple processes. And because all that data is being collected within the Microsoft environment, we can then report on all that information. So it's probably a secondary thing from FlowForma, but once you start collecting that good data, then here's an example of how we're able to report on how many people and who has been inducted, and then stats for waged and salaried staff. So yeah, good example there of sort of connecting the dots between different processes, but you could use your imagination and how that might, say, connect together something like safety between us making an observation on site. If there was an incident, you could link that together, and there's plenty of businesses out there that are doing that kind of thing as well.
Fantastic. Yep. And Paul, did you have anything to add regarding integrations?
Yeah, Performance System is designed to integrate. So it's basically a system that presents forms to human beings, they fill them in, but it can talk to systems in the background as it goes through a process. So one of the most obvious ones is it talks to Microsoft SharePoint to manage documentation. It also saves data, and it can save that data into, let's say, a SQL database. But you can also integrate it into many other systems. And as we speak to different construction companies, they all have their own CDE, common data environment, right? They all have different back-end systems that they need to integrate with. They'll all use different accounting systems and so on. Performa is designed to provide that veneer over everything, so that basically you're always, every process that you execute, every process that you run, um, captures data in a very similar way, and then Performa will talk to the systems in the background and push and pull information. So Cameron showed you an example of push and pulling information from GIS. But let's say you had an accounting system where you wanted to look up cost codes, you could look up those cost codes automatically in the form with that by integrating into that accounting system.
Yeah.
So we support lots of different integration options.
Brilliant.
because
Yeah.
every client is different.
Thanks. And back to you, Cam. What benefits has Downer seen since digitizing its processes? Could you perhaps talk to the areas of efficiency, time savings, and client satisfaction?
Yeah, sure. So just trying to think actually how long we've been on our journey. It's probably over 2 years now. You know, we started with piloting on 1 or 2 projects. And now it's escalated to the point where we have 11 projects on board with FlowForma, 23 different processes, you know, wide range of different processes. We now have something like 23,000 forms that have been submitted, over 45,000 interactions. And what we've done is we have measured the value in 2 different parts. The first part was development time saved. So what we did was we compared using FlowForma with a sort of more classic approach that Down has taken in the past, and using Power Apps. But what we found was creating these digital processes using FlowForma, there's a significant saving in development time. So that was the first thing that we measured, was development time saved, and then efficiency gain. So every one of those interactions, the 45,000 interactions, there's a portion of that which is time saving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we've calculated now is we've saved something like 200 days of development time if we were to take those same processes and develop them using Power Apps. And then somewhere in the order of 3,000 hours of efficiency gain. It's probably worth pointing out that that's not a bottom dollar cost saving to a construction company, but it is saving a small portion of everyone's day, and making people more efficient so that they can do other things at work, you know.
Yeah, those fantastic results there. Paul, did you want to comment on those results at all?
Yeah, I think they're exemplary results. I think they're fantastic. It's really interesting to see that that speed was a big thing for Cameron and Downer, because at the end of the day, you're using your non-IT resources, so you need to be able to do things quickly and not have them spend too much time digitizing processes. So saving 200 development days is a massive achievement. And then, as Cameron says, all these savings kind of add up in terms of the execution of the processes. So, 3,000 hours saved is a significant result. And also the idea of rolling it out to one project and the next and the next. So processes can be reused very easily. So as you're building one and getting those processes up and running on one project, you can improve them and roll them out to the next project very easily. You don't have to rebuild them again and again and again. So that's a really significant thing as well, that it's really easy to roll out. And in other words, what I'm saying there is that your savings are just going to grow over time. So the more you actually use your processes and deploy them onto their projects, the savings just add up to a higher amount. So that's really interesting, fantastic stats there from Cameron.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Cam.
Oh no, I was just saying it's worth pointing out as well, the governance app, right? So once you start scaling up, you start with 1 process that grows to 5 and then 10. And then all of a sudden, you can end up with an issue where you've got too many processes, right? Or you want those graduate level people to be able to build processes, but then what happens if you've got too many people building processes, and it becomes like the Wild West, right? And so FlowForma have a good solution to that. I mean, we've talked about how FlowForma facilitates a business process, the pitch and catch, from requesting to approving to closing out. Well, it turns out they've built the governance app, which applies that same theory, but to the FlowForma processes themselves. So I could create a process, and that has to be signed off by someone within the governance app, and you can control how those processes are farmed out on different projects, and you can control your license usage and that type of thing. So yeah, another important part of the platform, the ability to sort of govern all of these digital processes on site.
Brilliant, fantastic. So I guess finally, do you have any tips you can share with our audience on how to get started with automating their processes? Paul, we'll start with you with this one.
Yeah, I think it's important to get started. So I know it sounds obvious, but it's a hurdle. The first hurdle that you got to jump is to actually get started. So you got to select a process, and ideally that process should be a moderately complex process that's going to have significant impact because you want to try and build momentum by digitizing, getting it out to getting that process out to people and getting their feedback, and then building on top of that. So the thing to do is get started. And people often have a concern over that because they think, oh, well, our process must be 100% perfect and must be 100% right. That's not the way it works. Just get started, get something out there, get feedback and refine it. Okay. It's an iterative process. Okay. So the getting started is the number one thing we always say to people. Um, and once you get started, you'll start building momentum and you'll end up with the results that Cameron has achieved down there. So that would be my number one tip. Um, I don't know what Cameron, would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I think in general, if I was to look back at various companies and the approach that they've taken to onboarding different digitization tools, I'm for actually giving it a go. So pushing the buttons and testing an actual process like we did with the permit to dig. I feel like in the past, lots of companies have just bought tools with the shiny brochure technique, which is go to the market, look at some shiny brochures and say, that one, it looks like it's the best. And then what happens is they onboard it and then realize it doesn't actually do what it said on the box. So I'm a big fan of pushing buttons, battle testing it, making sure it works. If you approach a supplier, software vendor, and they're not willing to give you a trial, then you should question the tool and wonder if it's the right one. I found, with FlowForma, honestly, you guys have been so good and helpful to us, and even offered to, where we've run into some trouble, offered to, modify your platform for us to make it work. So that's been bloody good of you. But yeah, don't buy things off a shiny brochure. A few more things we've learned is when it comes to digitizing processes, especially for the larger construction companies, separate process from systems. And we learnt that early on. Downer have a standard process for a permit to dig. And it was really important that we let everyone know that we're not looking to modify a standard Downer process. All we're doing is applying a layer of digitization or systems over the top of it. So that was really important, and that probably would have saved us a bit of time initially if we had learned that earlier, to stick with the standard Downer process. Don't try and save it, change it, I should say. Keep it simple. So don't try and make your process too complex. If you start with a simple process, then the systems and digitization side of it will be more likely to be simple. If you start off with a complex process, then as you go further down the track, you're more likely to run into trouble. So try and keep the process as simple as possible. And then I think, like Paul says, you just need to make a start. We found in terms of digital engineering at Downer that it's a journey, and there's no end state. You learn stuff as you go, and so you'll digitize the first process and you'll learn lots on the way, and that'll open up different avenues for you to sort of continue on your digital journey. I found our approach was quite grassroots. So we don't represent the enterprise Downer group IT function. We're more of what they would call us as at the edge. So we're more at the coal face. We represent the project. So so for us, that's sort of more grassroots approach. And what we found was, yes, get started, digitize the process, but before you start trying to show people, make sure that you've brushed it up pretty well and that you've ironed out the bugs. Because if you go to show your shiny new process to someone and it doesn't work the first time, they'll generally go pretty cold on you. So you want to make sure you've got it pretty well sorted before you start showing people. And then what I learned through that kind of grassroots approach was what I call a coalition of the willing. So if you're not mandating a platform from an enterprise level, so it's not a top-down approach, it hasn't been mandated by the group IT function, you're sort of coming from grassroots, from the project coalface. And so what I tend to do is to try and get as many senior people on board as I can. So you'll have some key people in your organization that'll be keen for digitization, and you want to get all of those people as part of a coalition, get them all on board and get them selling the solution, the platform, the idea for you. So it's not just you being one voice trying to sell an idea. You've got a whole army of people that are selling the idea for you. I've got quite a list here. There's only a couple more, and I'll stop talking, I promise. But the next one was, yeah, and I think I mentioned it earlier. You could have the most clever and simple systems in the world, but if you don't have people on site to breathe life into them, they just won't work. And so what we have done as part of our governance plan for FlowForma is that we have a clearly identified process owner. So who owns that process on site? If it's a way to collect quality information, well, it's the quality manager who owns that process. If it's safety related, it's the safety manager who owns that process. And then on each one of our sites, we need a FlowForma champion. So a person that knows how to get people set up on the system, knows how to show them how to use it, and can really help, I guess, like I said, breathe life into it. The last thing is, once you get to the point of you've got a whole bunch of people on board, and it's looking like you've got a business case and you're going to start using a platform, you probably need to make some friends in IT. So pretty helpful to have some friends in the IT architectural and security team, and potentially even some bribery there. And then my final point is learning to deal with frustration. Has been my experience for years now. With a lot of these tools and ways of working, I've had pushback from various people all the time. And there's a group of us in our team, we give ourselves a pep talk every now and then, just to realize that dealing with frustration is part of the job, but don't let it get the best of you. And I've seen plenty of people who've just sort of gotten fed up over the years and decided to leave their job. Frustration will always be there when you're trying to innovate. There'll be a strong voice of people that want to get on board and do it, and there's an equal and opposite voice at the same time. And you just you need to give yourself some pep talks and keep pushing through. You will get there. It might just take some time. As Paul knows, working with us at Downer, some of these things didn't happen overnight, so you'll get there.
Brilliant. No worries. Thank you both for your tips there. So we are just going to launch one final poll before we can commence the Q&A session. So the poll is, are you looking to digitize your process in the next 6 months? So Cam, while we're waiting for those results, do you think digitalization is going to ramp up in the construction sector over the next, 12 to 24 months?
Yes. Short answer is yes from my perspective. Of course, I'm going to say that because I've got a role that has the word digital in it. But I think it is from my perspective, and I think the challenge is, though, instead of just us putting focus on these projects that are the sort of cream on the top, the best of the best projects that are doing all this wonderful digital stuff, because that's only a very small part of the complete portfolio across the whole construction industry. The real question is how do we lift the game for all the rest of the maintenance contracts and all other construction projects. So I think that's where the challenge is taking tools like FlowForma and making them more enterprise, rolling them out more widely so that the whole supply chain gets benefit from them.
Yeah, 100%. So looking at these results, are you looking to digitize your processes in the next 6 months? 55% said yes, it's a priority for me this year. 27% said no, we're not ready. Are these surprising to you, Paul?
No, certainly the 55%. We do see so much interest now in construction to adopt digital technologies. A lot of people have got their toes in the water with buying little point solutions here and there, and they're seeing a greater need. So absolutely, 55% is no surprise at all. It's also interesting to see that 27% number as well, that people are not ready. You may not realize that how easy it is to digitize, to introduce digital technologies. And to those 27%, I would say look again and see that, maybe listen to some case studies from our library and actually see the kind of successes people have gotten. Because we work with a lot of companies, big and small. Smaller companies who are entirely paper-based have digitized at scale using FlowForma, and they have no IT department at all. So I would say that even if you think you're not ready, I would look again and look at some of their case studies where you can see those successes. Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Well, thank you both for those comments. So now we'll now take some questions from the webinar attendees. So we do have one question that's come through. Paul, Sarah is asking, is it possible to access forms on site via mobile, and how can the tool be used if there's no internet connection?
Yeah, absolutely. So the examples I think Cam showed on his video were on a desktop, but we do have mobile apps for Android and iOS where you can fill in those forms while you're out on site. It's so critical to all our construction customers, and those mobile apps have a thing called an offline cache. What that means is that when you are not connected to the internet, you can still fill in your form and then save it up to the system later when you have connectivity. There you go.
Fantastic. And Cameron, David asks, what's next on the digital transformation journey for Downer? Are there always more processes to be digitized?
Yes, when I was showing you all earlier that kind of process, how we win, we deliver, and we transform. So we've got a bunch of other initiatives up our sleeve, and I think the future is looking really bright in terms of the way that we're using AI. So that's the kind of the next big thing for us. So we've been working for the past 18 months using cameras and AI in a few different areas. So number one is for safety, what we're calling safety vision. So cameras that can automatically detect site safety observations. So looking to keep our people safe. And then currently using cameras and AI to detect faults in the road corridor. So that's two examples of using computer vision AI. And then also we're developing what we'll call Downer GPT. So using large language models to automate content generation, but mainly actually just having different ways of people interacting with information. So a more conversational AI experience for your day-to-day work is where we're heading.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. So we are running out of, sorry, Paul, did you want to add in there?
No, just to say that FlowForma as well has got a lot of AI initiatives at the moment, so we're bringing in AI into the product. I think it's an interesting thing that Cameron's mentioning, that AI is very topical at the moment, and everybody's looking to see how they can gain advantage from it. So more to come from FlowForma in terms of AI features.
Yeah, brilliant. And Paul, one more for you because we have run out of time. Question for Paul, we need our suppliers to be able to input information into our forms and processes digitally. Is this something FlowForma allows? And that question comes from Leslie.
Yeah, absolutely. So the people involved in the process can be inside your organization or they can be outside your organization, whether that's the supplier, whether it's the client, whether it's the contractor. They can all interact with those processes and complete their steps in a process. So absolutely, we support external people working with you in your process.
So
Brilliant.
I'll just add in there because for a contractor, it's a really important point. And I think I mentioned earlier on with the example of Power Apps, Downer uses Power Apps and they're great, they're wonderful, they do what they need to do. But in order to get people to interact with those digital processes, we have to give them a Downer login, which is a whole another process in itself, right? Sometimes you'll have subcontractors turning up on site and they might only be there for a week. So it's a really important point. FlowForma offers Secure Engage. Paul, tell me if I've got the naming wrong here, but Secure Engage allows third parties to authenticate in through the platform using their Google, Facebook, or their own Microsoft account. So we don't have to set them up within the Downer system. And there's another part of the platform called Engage, which means people don't even need to authenticate or log in at all. So all they need on site is a cell phone and an internet connection, and they can fill out data in a form. So very useful for a contractor.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So that's all the time we had for questions today. Thank you to all attendees for joining us, and thank you to our speakers, Cameron and Paul. Please take a look at the resource panel if you'd like a free demo to see the return of investment on your business can achieve. You can visit the website that is up on the screen there now. So flowforma.com/demo. There will be a short survey at the end of the webinar. We would appreciate if you could take 30 seconds to fill this out. So thank you again for joining and see you next time.